Welcome to lesson 3 of our story writing project. So in lesson 1, you were presented with a new story, Howl, and this is the story we're using as our model. In lesson 2, you had a go at writing a setting description, and we're going to be continuing that today. But before we begin that, please take a moment, listen to the story of Howl so that you really get familiar with that, because remember, you're writing your own version, and after the story, we'll take a look in closer detail at writing a setting description. Howl. "Your turn to get the ball," cried Peter. "OK, don't go anywhere," replied Jack. Leaving the pitch and his friends, Jack entered the trees. It was shady and damp amongst the greenery. Nearby, a bird sang happily, and, somewhere close by, a stream gurgled gently. Slowly, he scanned his surroundings, but the ball was nowhere to be seen. "Where is it?" he asked himself in a frustrated voice. As Jack moved further into the small wood, his friends' voices faded. Suddenly, he felt a strange tingling sensation. His nose began to grow. His hands changed into paws, and fur sprouted all over his body. In less than a minute, Jack was on his knees, feeling very weird. Something peculiar had happened. Next, Jack tried to walk, but when he did, he used 4 legs instead of 2. Then he noticed his clothes were lying in a crumpled heap. Before he had time to think, his nose twitched. A million odours were wafting on the air. He could smell flowers, water. Who knew water had a smell? And other new, interesting things. Just then, something caught his eye. It was a puddle, and in it, staring back at him, was his reflection. But it wasn't the image of an 8-year-old boy. It was the reflection of a wolf. Panicking, Jack shrieked in shock, but in place of a boy's scream, he heard a loud, blood-curdling howl. Absolutely terrified, Jack ran as fast as he could. However, he hadn't realised just how powerful wolves are, because he shot out of the trees into the park and right onto the pitch where his friends were waiting. Everyone looked at the huge beast in amazement. "Peter, it's me, it's Jack," he cried. Although Jack thought he was speaking, all the children just heard snarling and growling. They thought they were about to be eaten alive. "Run for your lives," yelled Peter. Rapidly, Jack's friends and all the people in the park fled quicker than bullets. Before he could react, Jack heard the police sirens approaching fast. Then he heard a helicopter in the sky. "Attention, attention, leave the park. There is an escaped wolf on the loose," called a voice from a megaphone. As quick as a flash, Jack dashed back into the trees. His mind was racing and his heart was beating like a drum. What could he do? Then his super-sensitive ears heard men entering the trees and vicious barking. They had dogs with them. They were talking about shooting him with a tranquilizer gun so they could knock him out and take him to the zoo. "But I'm not from any zoo," he thought, panicking. Slowly but surely, the men and their dogs were approaching from all directions. He was trapped in the trees and had nowhere to go. Then he felt it once more, the tingling sensation. His ears and nose began to shrink, the fur disappeared from his body, and his tail vanished. He was a boy again. Luckily, the transformation happened right by his pile of clothes. As fast as he could, he threw them on, and in less than a minute he was dressed. "What are you doing in here, son?" asked a policeman. I lost my football," Jack answered nervously. "Haven't you heard? There's a wolf on the loose," said the policeman. "Really? That's news to me." "Maybe he took my ball," replied Jack, sighing with relief. So, describing a setting. You will remember from when we looked at Howl in lesson 2, there is a short setting description, which is this. Leaving the pitch and his friends, Jack entered the trees. It was shady and damp amongst the greenery. Nearby, a bird sang happily, and somewhere close by, a stream gurgled gently. Slowly, he scanned his surroundings, but the ball was nowhere to be seen. And this is a great example of a setting description. So, if you look here, we've got several fronted adverbials. leaving the pitch and his friends. That tells the reader what your character is doing. Nearby. Slowly. So we've got there 3 fronted adverbials. The first one is about the character, leaving the pitch and his friends. Jack entered the trees. We've then got a sentence, it was shady and damp amongst the greenery. No fronted adverbial there, but however, nearby. Nearby is a great one to steal for a setting description. It's talking about something that's close and you've got a comma. Nearby a bird sang happily and somewhere close by a stream gurgled gently. And then slowly he scanned his surroundings, but the ball was nowhere to be seen. We're going to take a look at another setting description now and see if you can magpie anything from this today for your setting description. So I'll read it and then we'll analyse the features. Buzzing softly, bees hovered above the vibrant roses, which perfumed the picturesque garden with their delicate fragrance. Gracefully, a duo of swans glided across the mirror-like pond, beneath which lurked rainbow-coloured carp and wriggling tadpoles. As Peter crossed the lawn, the verdant grass was springy beneath his feet. Springtime had arrived in all its glory. So just a couple of things here. Buzzing softly. That's a fronted adverbial which is telling us what the bees were doing. You could have singing softly if there were birds, mooing loudly if there were cows. So something about what you could hear. Bees hovered above the vibrant roses. Vibrant means full of life, which perfumed the picturesque garden with their delicate fragrance. We've got here a relative clause, which perfumed the picturesque garden with their delicate fragrance. So the fragrance is the nice smell. Then we're describing some animals, a duo of swans. So that means 2 swans. Gracefully. It's telling us how they are moving. So if you decide to put any animals in your setting description, you could have an adverb first. A duo of swans glided across the mirror-like pond, beneath which lurked rainbow-coloured carp, that's a type of fish, and wriggling tadpoles. As Peter crossed the lawn, so we've got a subordinate clause, the verdant grass was springy. Verdant means very green, springy beneath his feet. Springtime had arrived in all its glory. So here we've got sight in this description. We've got touch because the grass is springy beneath his feet. We've got hearing, the buzzing, and we've also got smell, the roses which perfume the air. So that's actually quite good because I've said many times I don't expect you to have all 5, but if you can get 4 in, 3 would be great, but 4 is even better. And the beneath the feet, the sand beneath the feet, the grass beneath the feet is always a good idea. So let's take a look at this example here. We have got a very spooky cemetery at night. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that we can see. And I'm going to see if I can actually put on here a text box so that I can mention some things that I can see. So let me just choose a larger font. So we can see grey. It's actually black, isn't it? A dark sky. We can also see a full moon. And we've also got bare trees. The reason they're bare is because there are no leaves on them. And also you could do a brilliant synonym about them. Maybe they look like skeleton fingers reaching up to the sky, something like that. There's a lot of mist around. I'm also going to put /fog because I don't know which is which. They're very similar, right? There's things on there you can use your imagination. What might you hear? So it could be silent. You could put spookily silent or eerily silent. But actually, you could maybe hear an owl hooting. You might be able to hear bats screeching in the sky. Maybe a wolf howling in the distance to make it really spooky. You could say it was, I bet it looks quite cold there. It looks like it's winter. You could say it was deathly cold. In terms of hearing, so I've mentioned owls and bats, possibly a wolf howling. If I was thinking about touch, I might say the frosty ground. The frosty ground was solid beneath his or her feet. Sight, we've mentioned the full moon, we've got the bare trees. I don't think you'd get anything for taste. I've mentioned touch, hearing. Now smell, you could, if this is spooky, maybe you could smell, trying to think here, there could be some really unpleasant smell in the distance. I'd let you come up with that yourselves. So I would like you to try and write a setting description of that cemetery picture. Now remember, the number one trick, do it from a character's point of view. Choose a name and talk about what they could see, what they could hear, what they could feel. It's much easier. So if I was going to pick out a random name, let me see, Ahmed, right? So as Ahmed crept through the deserted cemetery, he felt the frosty ground solid beneath his feet. If it was a girl, Sarah, as Sarah strolled nervously through the deserted cemetery, she felt frozen twigs crack beneath her feet. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled at the full moon, which cast its light upon the deathly landscape, something like that. So I'm really looking forward to reading your short descriptions. We're looking at a paragraph here of about 4 to 5 lines. I'm going to be looking for punctuation and neat, joined, if possible, handwriting. So I'm going to look forward to seeing your work. If you have any questions, let me know. Bye for now.